and welcome to the show, Paige. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. It is one of the nicest days here so far in LA, so I'm loving it.
I am super envious of that sunlight. Let me tell you, living in the Pacific Northwest, one of the things that we've struggled the last 4 years living here is the lack of sunlight, right? I was stationed in Hawaii. I grew up in Northern California. Before that, it was Florida, but most of my life, I claim I'm a Northern Californian, and I love Southern California. Obviously, being stationed down in San Diego, then Hawaii, sunlight is my jam. I'm envious. My wife goes to Palm Desert all the time.
Everything.
Our closest friends are in Palm Desert. Palm Desert's cool until the summertime, and then it's like, I don't need.
Yeah, you can't be there in that window. It's just too hot.
Oh, it's horrible. And
boiling.
No. It's like I like January there. It's like I'll just go to San Diego and be fine with San Diego because it's nice at night, right? So you got to put a sweatshirt on. I went to boot camp in San Diego, so I'm like, we wear a sweater at night. Like it's cold at night in San Diego. Trust me.
Yeah, it gets chilly.
Yeah, people don't think of it.
It's the perfect weather here.
So my
enough of the weather.
It is enough of the weather. We're starting with who starts with the weather? I mean, we sound like old people. Like, hey, Paige, did you hear about the weather? No, it's. But hey, on the side note,
what else am I going to talk about?
Hey, what are we going to do? We're not talking about anything else. You're here to talk about. It's our weather forecaster. She is not a YouTube talent at all. She's a weather forecaster. That's what we're doing. No. So here's my question for you. And everybody always asks. Everybody I know who's big on YouTube, right? Obviously, you work with a lot of brands, a lot of influencers. You build them up, especially the beauty industry, right? Like that is an amazing. I know my teenager. She lives on YouTube, and she does her hair from YouTube, makeup from YouTube. It's amazing and then I learned about the video game industry. I mean, my kids, my daughter not so much. My 13-year-old son, oh my God, he watches people play video games, and I'm still like,
I know. It's wild.
Right.
That's wild to me. I'm like, I don't understand that totally, but.
No. I get the hair and makeup, totally. The wife does that, the daughter. I'm like, I get that. I do that for myself. I'm not embarrassed. Like how to properly put a pocket square in, like different pocket squares, like things like that. I use YouTube for, or how to put LED lights up on a TV, or just anything. YouTube's good for that. But watching video games, I don't know who came up with that. But like, hey, let's watch Doug play video games for 6 hours.
Yeah, and talk smack to his friends.
Right. Like you can't even hear his friends. You're just watching him sit in a chair like. I'm like, and I go and I'm like, and he's like, oh, that's Bob, and he's awesome, and I'm like. Then I looked how much Bob makes, and I'm like, yeah, Bob's got a good job. Bob sits in a gaming chair and makes bank. So.
Yeah.
It's good. So leading to that, what brought you to the YouTube field? I mean, you have obviously there's not like yet in college. There's not a course built around social media. So what drove you into YouTube? I mean, what's your background? Is your background even in tech, or what is your background?
In college I studied communication. I kind of like defaulted to that because I was one of those kids that just like always had lots of ideas and always wanted to create something new, and I was like excited by experiences, but like college like didn't do much for me. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll just study communication, get my degree, and then I can take on the world. And so that's kind of what I did. I studied communication, got a degree, and I moved to Japan after I graduated from college, and I lived there as an English teacher for a year. And what I quickly realized in Japan is how hard it is to communicate. I was not fluent in Japanese by any means. I could say a couple words, but I just like really struggled with communication when I was there. And I'm like, I have a degree in communication. I should be able to speak. So what I started doing as a way of coping with that, and sort of as a way of therapy for me, was to make little videos, short form little videos about my experiences in Japan, about the local ramen shop, about the arcade, about these photo booths that they had. And I sent the links, I would upload them to YouTube. And back then, this was 2009. So back then YouTube was like still an infant. It didn't really know what it was going to be, and that it didn't know how massive it was going to get and the impact it was going to have on our planet. And so I would send these little links to my friends and family, and all of a sudden my videos started getting a lot of views, like tens of thousands, up to like 40,000 views on a video all of a sudden. And I'm like, what is happening here? I don't have this many friends and family. And so I just got really interested and fascinated by it. And I spent the rest of my career starting then learning about all of the aspects of what it takes to build a YouTube channel from the strategy side, from the YouTube side. I would go to the YouTube space in New York City and Chelsea Market and take classes and meet other creators and go to networking events. And then I also interned for production companies and started my own production company in New York, helping brands build their YouTube channels. And so it sort of just kind of snowballed from there. I kind of accidentally fell into YouTube, and I love it.
That's outstanding. I mean, that's a cool. Oh, the wrong camera. Woohoo! It helps if I put the right camera on. I love it when I do that. It's always fun, right? Learning how to play with cameras on this wonderful technology. Oh, yeah. It's always fun. We're going camera everywhere. We're like over here, one camera. There we go. But it's funny you talk about YouTube, right? And how short a time it's been since YouTube's been a technology. If you think about it, I mean, people are now, and I remember folks like Brian Fanzo standing up at Social Media Marketing World and talking about you should be using video, and Michael Stelzner's been always talking about video, and now you see everybody embracing video, but YouTube still has this, it's not completely embraced. I mean, there's folks that are very strong on it that I watch all the time, but you're seeing a lot of creators still afraid to go onto YouTube, right? And I think brands are still afraid of it because they're like, TikTok, right? And it's like, well, TikTok's great in its own means, but I look at YouTube as, I think YouTube's here to stay. Everybody's on it. All the media outlets that I work with, they go on it. The athletes love going on it. Some of the best content's on there. I mean, if you miss something on Netflix, for instance, Hassan Majan, his show, he does all of his monologues and outros are done on there, and some of it's the best content you could put out there. And it's great to grab a YouTube video and share it. I mean, and it changes industries. So, I mean, what does it take for a brand, or if you're an individual and you want to get onto YouTube, I mean, what are some of your like first steps? Because I know it's overwhelming. You turn on YouTube and it's not Facebook, it's not Twitter, it's not put a picture up and ta-da, it's not. I mean, there's thumbnails and tags and all these scary things and cards and endings and don't use somebody else's music, and just rules and regulations, but it has reach and people want the quick fix. But again, it's not something you can game like YouTube, right? Not YouTube, excuse me, LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn and YouTube are very connected when you think about, it's not easy to game it like you can Insta and the other systems. So what would you say to these folks that are wanting to dip their toe in the pool to YouTube? Like, I mean, how do you, like, without giving up, like, obviously if you want to work with Paige, we'll put you in contact with her. But for folks that are out there watching us for doing YouTube, what's your tips to getting started?
Yeah, well, I actually have a YouTube course, so that's a lot of the ways that I teach YouTube right now as well. But I'll just give you a couple pointers. So the people that I tend to work with, it's not just about throwing some content out there and growing a YouTube following, right? I really want to look at it as a holistic strategy. Like, what is the bigger picture? How are you planning on monetizing your channel? How are you planning on growing your brand with the content that you're creating? And it's interesting that you talk about it in relation to like Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, because YouTube is its own beast. Like, it is not social media, and I encourage my clients, and I encourage you watching, everybody here, don't look at it as social media. It is not social media, it is a search engine. All right. And if you can really think of it in your holistic strategy in terms of what are people searching for and how do I create content that puts me at the top of those search results, that is how you will get the most bang for your buck with YouTube. The other thing about YouTube is that the content has a much longer shelf life than any other platform, than your Facebook Live videos, right? Than your Instagram stories or Instagram TV. It's not the kind of thing where it's going to show up in someone's feed and then taper off and disappear. What a good YouTube video will do is you'll ideally get a lot of traction when you first put it out, and then it'll just start to increase as you go, because if you have the strong strategy behind it, and if you have positioned it for landing on top of those search results, you're going to get more views on that video as time goes on. So an example is, there's a video I put out 2 years ago that still gets a lot of views and comments and subscribers for me. Like, that's a big traffic driver from one video that I put out 2 years ago. So you have to think of, when you're investing in YouTube, time and money, you got to think of it as a marathon, not a sprint. It is a long game, but the more you can invest right now and put together like a really clear plan and roadmap for your YouTube strategy, it will pay off so much more than throwing a couple Instagram stories up there randomly, right? Or, tossing a couple TikTok videos. So I hope that's kind of my spiel when I first talk about YouTube, is like, it's a search engine, not social media. You got to think of it in terms of the long holistic strategy. There's a giant bee that just landed on my window, and that's scary. Is that a murder hornet? I don't know.
The murder hornet's back. Just when you thought 2020 couldn't get worse, we have murder hornets.
Yeah, right? Oh my God. Peak 2020 right there. All right, it's gone.
Okay, go.
And then long shelf life. So these videos are going to be around for a while. You really want to invest some time and energy into creating them and making them really great and valuable.
I love that you say that, because that is so true. Because I do think other social media, we don't remember from one day to the next. I mean, with especially Twitter, right? I'll pick on Twitter. I have a love-hate with Twitter. I love Twitter. I'm addicted to it. It's truly my second favorite platform to spend a lot of time on, other than YouTube. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't remember a tweet from yesterday. I barely remember my own tweets from yesterday, and whether they're athletic. I mean, and it's hard to keep up. Some people that use Twitter, they use it every day in the wrong fashion and are just pure hateful on it. I mean, but that's different with YouTube. It lives forever. It's got shelf life. I mean, even our show, being as young as we are, with we started a brand new YouTube. It was the first time I can remember starting a brand new YouTube channel, was this channel we're on, right?
Yeah.
Boom. And it was crazy to watch it grow, but it hasn't been overnight, and it's frustrating because we're doing all the things, tagging and all the things, but it's not overnight. And I know a lot of people, so I'm going to ask you this question. A lot of people watch these videos, and they're out there. They're like, I gained 1,000 subscribers in a short amount of time. But I mean, that's kind of a fluky thing. Not everybody has it. Not everybody's brand is going to be like that. Some people, yes, it works. I believe them. But others, like a show like ours, it has to be, you steadily just continue putting the content out, and you're rewarded by it. And we have been. I mean, our growth in the last 20 days, to me, we're getting more than 1 subscriber a day. We're getting 5. I mean, on any given day, we get 10. I mean, to me, it's amazing. But for me, a stat I care about is view time. How long people watch us. Hear you and I talk. I mean,
yeah, that's the stat that YouTube cares about too.
Oh, awesome.
And that's important. It's important to look at YouTube as like, it is a business, right? YouTube wants to make money. So what kind of content can you put on YouTube? How can you become a YouTube creator that will help YouTube? Because that means they're going to prioritize you on the algorithm. And right now, the thing that YouTube is really looking at is watch time. How long are your videos? How long can you keep a viewer watching your video? And that's like really important, and that's also what differentiates YouTube, because a lot of social media experts will tell you like short and sweet, right? Keep it short, keep it 2 minutes, less than 1 minute, whatever. Like TikTok is super bite-sizable content.
Yeah.
YouTube is different, like 10 plus minutes for a YouTube channel to really increase your watch time, and that will skyrocket your visibility on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that's key, but I think that's also unique, right? Gary Vee has always been talking about each platform has a different form of content. I mean, we've all preached it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a decent social media following, and I've always told people, don't put the same stuff out across all your platforms. You just look unoriginal. And obviously we've seen, and I've been working with different folks on LinkedIn, because I absolutely love LinkedIn. I love that LinkedIn has really embraced video. But I mean, what's LinkedIn's video? They want your videos to be under 2 minutes, right? And I could spend hours bashing on Facebook what constitutes a view, but I take my numbers serious. I mean, it's true. Come on. I mean, we all know YouTube's the leader when it comes to what we're talking about, when it comes to views and everything. So when folks jump into YouTube, especially working with beauty brands, right? I mean, that's got to be difficult. There's a lot of competition out there. I mean, so how do you go through and give advice to folks to like start that, right? I want to start a brand. I mean, what is tip one? Like, how do you even start? I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, how do you even start? I mean, that's a really great question. So, the best piece of advice I can give to people just starting out is eliminate all the barriers to entry. So a lot of us will look at what our favorite YouTubers are doing and the people who've been doing this for years and years and years, who have lots of equipment and teams and editors and people that help them. And we'll look at that and say, oh, there's just too much to do. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not going to start a channel. And that's not serving you at all, right? So if you can just use your webcam and like a built-in microphone and start your YouTube channel there, amazing. The best thing that you can do for your YouTube channel, first and foremost, to make it look like you know what you're doing, is to brand your YouTube channel. So make sure you have that channel art. Make sure you have custom thumbnails that look professional, even if your video doesn't, because you will get that click and people will start to watch your video, okay? It's not necessarily about the quality of the video, it's about the quality of the content, of the information that you're delivering in the video. So make it look good. Like if you can, for very little money, kind of free, you can brand your YouTube channel really simply and make it look like you know what you're doing.
Make it know what, yeah, that's true. And it's not...
Make it look like you know what you're doing.
But at the end of the day, I'm going to say this, and you'll probably agree, obviously, you do this for a living. Just hire somebody. Basically, if you really want to get it done right, your best way to start, and I find this from my own experience, and I'm not doing this, I'm obviously not paid to say this, but my advice to anyone is to hire someone like Paige, like, you know, anyone else that's out there in the field that they are. Maybe, you know, beauty's not your thing. Paige could probably point you in the right way, at least help you get going. But I think that's the best way to do it. If you're serious about jumping into YouTube, you can do it on your own. You're going to be frustrated. You will. You're going to bang your head. Trust me, I've cursed at walls, you name it. I've screamed into pillows over this. I've ridden many miles on my Peloton because I'm like, I'm just going to go ride because this is frustrating. You walk away from it, you're just like...
Yeah, you're like, I have so much anger inside of me. Let me go spin it out.
That's what I'm going to do. I hate this thing. I hate you, YouTube. But I think it's so funny that people, I mean, but that's true advice. I mean, obviously you do this for a living, but wouldn't you say, if you're really serious, hire somebody to help you? And it's not like they need to like put you in the budget for 10 years to do this. This isn't I mean, once you get your YouTube going, it's eventually you teach yourself and you learn how to do it. I mean, and then you bring that team on. And I think that's key because that's what we're doing is, you know, the first 100 subscribers for us was a goal. I'm not going to do anything till we hit 100 just because I want to see how hard it is to get there because, I mean, it's YouTube. So, I mean, would you agree that the best part is to hire somebody to help you kind of get that initial burn? Yes,
absolutely. That is the ideal situation, right? If you have the budget to be able to do that, definitely hire somebody. The next best thing would be to like get a course.
Yeah.
Like I have 2 YouTube courses, one just about branding your YouTube channel that's like a mini course, and then I have one that's like more holistic and goes through the whole strategy and helps you plan out your content. So if you can't hire a professional, at least get a course and like start by knowing something, right? Start by having some kind of roadmap or direction, and a professional can help you with that, or an online course can help you with that too.
I love talking about this because courses are great too. I mean, maybe you don't have the budget to hire for the one-on-one, but get those courses. They're out there. There's plenty of people out there. So I always tell people to do that. So that's the key to everything. Yeah, so that's sound advice. So I want to thank you. I mean, that's if you have anything to share, please do. But I think we're to the end of our journey here. Our fun interview has.
No.
Oh, I know. Sorry. I know. We'll have to.
We don't want to extend watch time on this video.
But hey,
We've reached our watch time, Matt.
We did. We reached our watch time. But we have other guests we have to get to. I love talking YouTube. See, that's my problem. Is my team knows I'll talk about YouTube all day long because I'm a geek for it, and I'm always trying to get people onto it. And especially our guests coming on, I'm thinking of like 5 people I want to refer to you right now. Like, totally need this person, this person, this person needs it because you obviously fit their niche. I love that word. So I definitely thank you for coming on. I want to have you back on. I'd like to have you back on as often as you like, just to talk about YouTube, folks understanding how to do it, because I think a lot of people, especially as they go back to the workforce, a lot of people are going to want to create a channel. And I mean, even us. I mean, we created this show during the COVID. Like, it was my 15-year-old who's like, Dad, you should start a news channel. And I'm like, okay, why don't we create that? And we did. And it was a bunch of YouTubers. I blame you, YouTube people. They're like, dude, you should totally do it. Like, it's a great idea. Use YouTube. And I'm like, okay, and then I've seen what Facebook does, and it's a fun it's been an adventure that now I'm addicted to. And I was laughing. I don't know if you know Desiree Martinez. Des is a good friend of ours. And I was laughing. I was like, dang it. Because I used to make fun of her for always like the thumbnails where you're like doing the pictures, right? The thumbnail picture that
yeah, now that's you.
Oh, I am. I'm totally guilty. I have YouTube photos.
Oh,
I'm like, I used to make fun of I'll never do that. I remember. So if she's listening, Des, you're right. Totally did that. Any YouTuber I've talked to, I respect you all, but I'm never doing one of those photos where you're like, now I'm like, I gotta
now
go.
It's all, yeah.
I was telling my photographer, I was like, hey, Lee, we need to take some more photos. He's like, for what? I'm like, for thumbnails. He's like, ha, 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 ha. You used to say you would never do that. I'm like, shut up. Totally doing it now.
We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to take the photos and not talk about it, okay?
Just take the photos. Just go. Just take the photos. But anyways, I want to
take them away. I never want to see them again.
Never, ever again. But I do want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a great conversation, learning about YouTube. Again, tell folks how they could get a hold of you out there. Obviously, folks, when you're watching, know that you can just scroll down. Scroll down while you're watching. It's right there. Click the button, and it'll take you to Paige. But Paige, tell folks how they can get a hold of you.
Yes, you can find me. My website is pagemedia.com. And then you can find me on YouTube. If you go to bit.ly/PageTV, all lowercase, you can find me there.
Woohoo. See, they can find you there. It's shocking. You're on YouTube. That's good that you're on YouTube. So
yeah, probably a good thing.
It's good. We're talking about it, so I'm glad that you're on YouTube.
Probably a good thing.
So everybody go out, follow Paige. You won't be disappointed, I promise. There's a lot of pressure for you, Paige. I just said they won't be disappointed. So
I know. Can't disappoint you guys. I do a lot of videos about YouTube and about video. Sweet. So all these things, if you want more,
Sweet.
get over there.
I'm going to go subscribe to your channel right now just so we have, maybe you'll subscribe back to ours.
Always.
Maybe. Now, anyways, but I want to thank you for coming on. Let's have you back on real soon. Everybody, we'll have our next guest coming up next.